So it's 6:02 here. My name is Chris Senecal. I'm chairman of the HPDD Review Board. I'd like to open this meeting at this time. All of the members of the review board are present and accounted for, as well as the Secretary Tamika Murphy, and the other members are Dick Williams, Michelle Van Riet, Jim Purington, and Doug Briggs. Doug, you are here, correct?
I am.
All right, great. All right. I know Kent's here, and Kent, the rest of the whole crew here.
I think Peter Campobasso is here. We'll speak first, and I know Laurel's here, and Ron, and Mike Antonellis is also here.
All right, so you're ready to go?
We're ready to go.
Terrific. All right.
Take it. Peter is ready.
All right. So what I want to do here first. First of all, let's just vote on the minutes from the last meeting as a board, if we could.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of December 9th.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion on the minutes?
No.
Everything look good? I have no issues. Everybody's good? Okay. I'll make a motion to make a vote on accepting the minutes.
Roll call. Dick Williams. Aye. Briggs, aye.
Michelle Van Riet, aye.
Chris Senecal, aye.
I wasn't there.
Jim, were you there? Did Jim vote?
Yes, he was there.
Jim, are you out there? I thought he's fine.
He was here. He's muted right now.
Jim, if you can take yourself off mute and please vote to accept the minutes. He's giving me 2 thumbs up, so
Okay.
I'll take that as a yay. All right. So that motion passes. The minutes are accepted, and I'd like to get on with the business at hand tonight.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Should the
Yes.
RDIC, if they have quorum, also open their meeting?
Okay. Do they have to do that?
If their meeting is a quorum, yeah.
I did not post the meeting, so I can't open the meeting. So I guess we're here as individuals, not as members of the RDIC. We won't participate as a group or, vote on anything.
Or deliberate.
Deliberate, correct.
Okay. All right. Terrific. Thank you, Peter, for just making sure on that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
Okay, so I would just like to bring up the next item on the agenda, which is the hearing for the HCH Senior Development Housing Project up at the Rutland Heights property. This is the first meeting of the concept plan, the public hearing that you have for a concept plan. And at this time, I just want to give some of the new players, some of the new members that are on this Zoom meeting, I just would like to give you folks all an update of how and where we are and just what how we've gotten where we are and exactly what we're trying to do at this meeting tonight. The town a while back had put out an RFP for developers to come to the property and develop the property in conjunction with the master reuse plan of the Heights property. HCH was awarded and came into an agreement with the town to provide to develop a multi-unit facility of basically duplexes for 55 and over housing. They have been going back and forth. This was all done before this HPDD review board was involved. So the RDIC board, the town selectmen, and HCH have come to an agreement, and it's this HPDD review board's charter to just review these plans, go over the site plan, the ultimate site plan. there are two main conceptual plans that the applicant will bring to us for review. One is a concept plan, which is the first initial revision of this plan is just was posted, and that's what this meeting represents tonight. Ultimately, after we get through this conceptual plan process, the applicant will next go into a formal site plan review, at which time, at the end of that process, it will be approved and released, and away they go for construction. If I understand the land deal, I'm not sure, Mike Sullivan, if the land has to get sold to them at that point, and then they do the construction, or where how that all falls in. But again, that's out of bounds of this meeting, and really not really a need for discussion at this point in time. Again, so our purpose is just to review the documents that they're submitting to build this senior housing development they're proposing right now. So with that being said, that's where we're at. That's the purpose of this review board, and that's what the town has already accomplished. The goal tonight, one of the things, I want to bring everybody up to speed on the applicant has had basically a question about exactly how do I design this development and what guidelines should they be using? It was a great question. We had, in the very first meeting we had that we met the applicant, I tried to give them a good, detailed view of what the board would be looking for, what our responsibilities are to review, and how the whole town as a whole, all the other departments, how we submit those plans to other departments, whether it be a fire chief or the planning board, the conservation commission, board of health, etc. And we get that feedback and we bring that to them. But their specific question, and also I just want to bring up to speed here, Dave George, okay, the planner, is really the point person for contact through any questions that the applicant, the developer has, during this process. And if we need anything, we reach out to Dave as well. So he's that middleman. And Dave got a call from, I believe, Peter, their lawyer, Campobasso, and he had some questions about exactly just what are the guidelines that we designed this development around. And it was a good question. Dave and I had a conversation last week about just how, we have an Article 5 that is the Rutland Heights Plan Development District bylaws. In that document, you could interpret things a couple different ways. Dave and I both had not difference of opinions, but just different outlooks on things. We agreed last week to get town councils, their opinion on how we should work this process and what guidelines, bylaws, etc., how we're going to follow that process, how we're going to direct this applicant and ultimately approve a project for this property, specifically an over 55 development. And the town council sent out an email mid this afternoon, basically stating that as it states in Article 5 of the zoning bylaws is really the number one ultimate. It has the final say. If it says anything, it has the final say. And really, there's one thing in there that has an issue about a setback. I believe it's a 30-foot side setback. Okay, where the town bylaws might have a more lenient or a more strict side setback or back setback, but we go by Article 5 in that case because it specifically states that particular setback. If there was something in this bylaw that specifically states how much square footage of land you would have per quantity of units, we would go by that. If not, then we're determined to go into other areas of the bylaws, which again is Article 48 that has the senior housing, which dictates a more compressed footprint for a larger quantity of houses per square foot of land than a normal single-family development would take, for instance. So they've given their opinion. That's the way they've determined that we should follow this. Other document that came up in their opinion was not Article 5, also the reuse plan for the Rutland Heights property that was developed back in 1997. So I emailed that out to a couple of the applicants, I believe, and the board and a bunch of people that were on the town email so that you guys would have it. But Peter has also put this, he's got this document here. If we need to refer to this document tonight, we have that available. And I think there is a little bit of guidelines. I read through that briefly this afternoon. And I think there's a few things in there that we need to be cognizant about when we're just really kind of creating the goalposts for HDH development to design their drawings. As someone who's in construction and develops property myself, last thing I want to do is spend a ton of money on producing all detailed engineered drawings, site civil plans, and then have the town come back and say, "Oh no, you can't do it like that. You got to use these rules instead of those rules." And that's just, it's just a waste of time and money and energy. And I think the thing to do is do what we have done, Dave and I, along with the applicant, and talk with the town council and get their opinion so that we have a sturdy set of guidelines legally backed that we can therefore go forward and set the goalpost up for these folks so that they can get a more detailed plan and they know how to really ultimately design this development. Okay. So that's kind of the main goal that I really want to establish tonight is I just want to make sure the applicant, if you guys, I just want to make sure that you really understand exactly what we're going to be judging and reviewing the plan by that document. Again, just to really put out there to everybody, this is the first real property, the first development property for the Rutland Heights property. And this is all new ground for us. We haven't really gone through this process. There's been a lot of just conversations and just, kind of creating a plan on how to go through and do an approval process for a project like this property. So with that being said, I'm going to go through next just a few things about, how to establish these guidelines, some of my opinions. Before I open it up to the applicant and the other board members, I just want to go through those things. After that point, we'll just hear from the applicant. I want to do a brief overview of the concept plan that they've looked at. And then after all of that information is out there, any abutters, any of the town people, any of the department heads would be glad to hear all the information and why we're doing what we're doing and where it's coming from. Then you can ask your questions at that later time, okay? So just to give you a whole general overview of how this meeting is going to roll tonight. With that being said, the town council's letter, I believe, Peter, you shared that on the documents as well, correct? Did that information get out there? That email?
I do not have the letter, no.
Okay. Tamika, is there any way that you could here and he could possibly post that?
Chris, I didn't receive a copy of it either.
You didn't? Okay.
No.
All righty. So let me see what I can do here to get that over to you, Peter. All right. Hang on just a second here, just so we have that letter. Anybody that wants to view it will be able to view that document. Okay, here it is. All right, so forward to. Okay, Peter, I just sent that to you.
Okay, I'll wait for it to arrive.
And you get a chance. So the letter basically, as I said, it states that we go by Article 5, and then if it's not specified in Article 5, the applicant would go to the bylaw that represents that, which is the Article 48, the over 55. I also want to point out in the use plan that the letter mentions. The use plan dictates 3 zones. There's Zone A, B, and C up at the hospital. Okay, and just to give you a quick overview of that, Zone A is the upper part where most of the buildings were up top. Zone C was on the right-hand side that would abut like Bill's garage and that little stretch of land that goes up the right side of when you off of Maple Ave. If you would go up that property, stretch of land on your right-hand side, that is Zone B. And then Zone B is to the left of that. All that land from, Maple Ave, Route 56 towards the pond on that left side of that access road. So those are the 3 main zones that the reuse plan breaks it out. The reuse plan, basically says that elderly housing should be in that Zone C, that parcel right by Bill's garage. And it says Zone A should be more industrial commercial. And then it also specifies that Zone B should be used as a mix of town uses like ball fields, or maybe DPW buildings, things that would associate with that, and also light commercial as well. And also in zone C by bills, it could be commercial as well as over 55 or, you know, assisted living type facilities, elderly housing, as they mention it. So I just want to have a conversation with our review board that, in my opinion, allowing the applicant to use zone A, which is the larger, you know, industrial park on top of the hill, as senior housing, where he has the majority of the housings. I mean, personally, I have no problem with that. There's also a section in the reuse plan that says, if you go to page 15 of the reuse plan, in the conclusion, it specifically states that the interaction between these uses, you know, there's potential for that. Okay. And ultimately, the commission, you know, to achieve success in this project must maintain a flexible approach to development so that the reuse of the site can continue to be focused on meeting the town's needs and can reflect and be modified to respond to the changing goals in the market demand. Now, for years, that property has been marketed as industrial commercial and really has had hardly any, you know, use for that. So using zone A for the elderly housing and zone C, in my opinion, is well within the reuse plan. And if any of the board members or anybody has a comment on that, I'd like to hear that. But I just wanted to point that out in the reuse plan, that the applicant is using something that it wasn't originally planned for in one particular zone, but this reuse plan does give us the flexibility to adjust for that. Does anybody have any comments or questions on that?
I do, Chris.
Go ahead.
It's Michelle. Yeah, everything you said is accurate. Like the bylaw itself allows for flexibility, but also having been on the RDIC for a while, we've really had trouble marketing to any commercial. It has not been successful to date. And all indicators from the CMRPC, is that the right acronym, has been that we shouldn't be looking for that in our environment because we don't have the access to the highway.
Okay, terrific. Anybody else have any comments?
Just Dick Williams here. I just feel that all the over 55 units should be up on top and lot A, period.
And what would your reasoning for that be, Dick?
Because I do feel that in the future, we will need places for commercial, you know, new pharmacies, who knows what, you know, we need a place to put it. And right now, being on the town center study committee, we have very few places in this center of town where we can put any large buildings whatsoever if we wanted to build anything new. We need to have an open space.
Okay, all right. Anybody else have any questions and comments?
Do you see the raised hand?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. Just please feel free to speak up.
Yeah, this is Timothy Stalmuck.
Yes, thank you. I am new to Rutland, and actually my house is directly behind Bill's garage, and so my house will be butting right up against Lot C. I was wondering if the town of Rutland has made any determinations to that they're definitely going with a 55 plus community, or is that just up in the air right now? Are they open to other options?
Okay, so at this time, due to an RFP that the town had put out, and I believe the only respondent was this applicant, HCH Development, the town has entered into an agreement to allow them to proceed with developing this parcel C and parcel A with the 55 and over elderly housing complex.
Okay, so
I'm not. I would have to possibly pass that question along to maybe Mike Sullivan if you want to speak in detail of the agreement. But this board is going to ultimately approve this for construction. So in all essence, I'm not exactly sure where that stands. But yes, if it gets through this process of approved, it would be ready for construction.
Okay. So they have already determined that it's going to be a 55 plus community. There's no other suggestions that they're exploring, as such as keeping it as a historical area because of it being its first of its kind back in the 1800s. They're not interested in any of that.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman,
so,
if I could.
hang on a second. So just just not, we're not going to get into that at this time, sir. And this property has a history. Okay, we are just a review board for an application to purchase a parcel. This parcel has been marketed for almost 2 decades, maybe longer than 2 decades, and this is the whole master reuse plan that was done back in 1997 upon the purchase or shortly before the purchase of this property, either before or after, right around the time frame. And
Chris?
Yep.
Mike Sullivan here. Just to respond to the gentleman's comments, we sent out over the course of 5 years 4 RFPs, and we got 2 viable responses, both of which were for senior housing. Those are the only responses we got. And one of those responses had issues with it, but both of them were for senior housing.
Okay.
Chris, Mark.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, Chris, I know they want to put it's going to be right beside what I'm looking at, right beside the garage. I don't know how far back it's going, but the only issue I'm going to have with that, not me as much as the people are going to be living there, is we are 24/7. I have big equipment out there running at night, especially in the snow. My trucks are out at night. They make a lot of noise. I have diesel guys in there at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I don't want to be hearing complaints. They're going to put something beside me that, I mean, I do want to expand my business too, but we're there and we do make noise, and we're not trying to make noise, but that's obviously what we do. I mean, we have a lot of equipment running a lot. And they're going to be complaining if they're 30 feet off my board in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and Mark, listen, you're an established business. You've been there for God forever, as long as Rutland's been there. You're zoned for that area. You're meeting the uses of that. There's really, if they complain, I mean, I don't know what to say, but there's really not going to have any leg to stand on about a complaint. Your business is established. You're meeting within the guidelines of the town. You provide services for this town to go out and recover accident vehicles during the middle of the night, and those people are going to have to live with that. So, that's just something they're going to have to live with. I don't know what to say. I'm not really, this is
I understand that.
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking that if you restrict to
hold
zone
on. Hey, listen, one at a time, please. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I don't really want to get this into a public discussion right now, guys. We have a long way to go before this final plan. Okay. And that's why I asked in the beginning, please just sit tight and listen to get familiar with the project. And we need to get into some things here and get moving along here. It's almost 6:30. I want to get into some for these guys so that they can provide detailed drawings. It's really hard for me to even give you a lot of information about what they're doing until these drawings are really good and detailed and we actually see what's going on. Okay. Doug, you're on the board. Do you have a question?
Yeah. I just want to make sure that what I have is the right thought process. Our purpose is not to, like Dickie says, he doesn't want to have housing units on the land right by Mozio's. He wants it off Walter Hill. That's not really our purview. It's correct. It's the RDIC that has made this determination. So if there's a problem with where the things are located or whatever, that's an RDIC question, not the HPDD. Our purpose is to sit there and say, okay, given what we've been given, does it meet the different criterias of our zoning bylaws and the like? And I will attest to living next door to Mozio's for 45 years that they are a 24/7. But it has always been, I know that when he starts up his trucks at 5 o'clock in the morning, that's the way life is. But I don't think that we should also look at it and maybe say, is there something we can do to help mitigate some of the potential problems, whether it's putting in, hemlocks or or fencing or something to help mitigate the noise that might hit these particular units.
That's a good point. We can discuss that. But again, before we get into those details, we really haven't even gotten to the formal site plan approval process. We are in the concept plan here, guys. And again, we're going to give everybody a chance to speak tonight and put those thoughts out there. But Doug, you hit the nail right on the head. We are a review board, folks. This is not a discussion about where we're going to put things. This is not a discussion of whether they should be there in the first place. The town and the RDIC board has already made this agreement with the developer. So we are just here to review this so that it's in to the zoning bylaws of the Rutland Heights bylaw section and all other bylaws in the Rutland Heights reuse master plan. That's what we are here to review tonight. So with that being said, just to get on with setting the goalposts here for the developer. I think it's important that the town council's letter again said which way we're going to go. We're going to go with Article 5. That's going to refer us to the Article 48. That'll be the 55 and over. Okay, so that right there, in my opinion, due to the fact that the use senior housing is an allowed use in the HPDD zoning district, a special permit pursuant to the bylaw would not be required. As Article 5 is specific to the HPDD and Section 48 applies to senior housing in all districts, the provision of Article 5 and Section 22 controls in senior housing is allowable and does not require special permits. Goes on through down below. You have further asked how the bylaw 24C should be applied to the proposed senior housing, and that states all structures and uses shall also comply with the town of Rutland zoning bylaw. In town council's opinion, the same analysis above applies. The requirements of the zoning bylaw apply, including those in Section 48, unless they conflict with more specific in Article 5. And Article 5 is the specific bylaws associated for the Rutland Heights property. So with that being said, I just want to put that across to Peter, the attorney for the for HCH, and let him know. Does that basically ask you the question? Does that give you enough information, Peter, on how to further create a design and a detailed site plan for this project?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yes, and just for clarification, I did have a conversation last week with Dave George, your planning director. In the course of our conversation, he and I went through different provisions of the bylaw. I sent an email to Kopelman and Page last Friday asking for clarification on this very point, just to confirm what Dave and I had thought would apply. And it does, it's very helpful, and it does confirm what I concluded. I just wanted to make sure that we were both on the same thought process as we started to move forward. So yes, I'm aware of it, and it's very helpful.
Good. I mean, that's important, Peter. I just want to make sure you guys understand, the guidelines to work within, and you're not spinning your wheels and wasting time. And I want to ask that same question to all the review board members, and the RDIC board members, and any other town, Peter or Ron. Does anybody have any disagreement, or are they clear and understand how this project and quite honestly future projects should be reviewed here? Is there any issue with that?
Well, I'm getting to be confused, Chris. And
go ahead, Dick.
Last night, the planning board, I saw the drawing here, and I don't see a right of way for solar, for access to the solar up on the top. And also, I know that all our subdivisions and anything else, anything over 1,000-foot roadways has to have a second egress, and I don't see any second egress into this this subdivision.
Okay, those
now, does that fall under Title 5 or whatever you're talking about, Chapter 5?
Okay, so yes, for instance, when it comes to giving them guidance for the street layout.
Yeah.
Basically, the order we're going to be following is Article 5 takes precedent over anything else here. If there's nothing in Article 5, which there is not, about how to design a street in the HPD in the Rutland Heights property, then you would revert down the line. And the next in line would be the reuse plan, which there's nothing in there about roads, okay? Then we go down to the bylaws. Now there's two sections. The bylaws here, basically, you know, the planning department, all of those, it references right in Article 5 that you, as far as developing the subdivision, you would go to the planning board, all their, you know, like all your requirements for streets and signage and striping and all that kind of stuff, Dick.
Yeah.
Have to meet those requirements. Yeah, unless there is something in Article 5 or the reuse plan that would specifically say they didn't have to meet that, or possibly it was more stringent than what you guys have on the planning board now. Does that make sense, Dick?
I hope so, because, you know, is this going to be a private way or is it going to be a public way?
That's
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Go ahead, please.
address some of the issues, I think it might be helpful because a lot of the questions that are being asked are very good questions. And I think from a procedural standpoint, it'll be helpful for all of us to understand. Back when we initially had the pre-application conference, there was some discussion about what applies and what sections apply and how we proceed. My reading of the bylaw is that we are first and foremost in the HPDD district of the town of Rutland's bylaw. And therefore, whatever use we propose must be consistent with that provision. And that's the Article 5 provision that the chairman keeps referencing. Now, within that section, there are two, for lack of a better term, two processes we have to follow. We did the initial pre-application review, which was a requirement, and that was held back in, I believe, December, when we talked about what we would be presenting and what we would be filing, in the sense that based on the discussions with the RDIC and the agreement to proceed with a 55 and older development, that's what the pre-application meeting was for. Tonight, we submitted what's called the concept plan, because based on our preliminary discussions with the RDIC, keeping in focus the Rutland Heights reuse plan and the HPDD requirements, the 55 and older proposal is what is going to be presented to the town. With the concept plan, what we've clarified is that because this is senior housing, there are specific provisions in there that state you have to go to the bylaw requirements if there's not something in the HPDD. So we will design this project keeping the senior housing special permit requirements in line, so that as we present this or as we design this, we will be conforming with the town's bylaw, in the sense that we are A, proposing senior housing in the HPDD, which is a use by right, and B, it will be in line with the senior housing requirements. And then to the members, the member, I see his name on the screen is Dick, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I don't know your last name. Once we get into the final site plan, there is reference in there that the underlying subdivision rules and regulations have to be taken into consideration as well. So as we start to design the roadways, what will service, access, means of egress, all of that stuff, we will have to review certain provisions of the subdivision regulations to incorporate that in the site plan, so that it won't just be sort of a hodgepodge proposal. It'll be something that is consistent with the town's bylaws, rules and regulations, so that the proposal itself will be consistent and in line with what the town of Rutland wants to approve. So that's what we will be proceeding by. And I think the fact that we're having this discussion now is very helpful. It's always good to get comments because the chairman is absolutely correct. A lot of work, engineering, planning has to go into this site plan, and it's nice to get some feedback before we start so that we make sure when we come back, we're presenting something that is accurate, consistent with the bylaw, and won't be won't be inconsistent. So hopefully that, in a general sense, addresses some of the issues that have been raised or questions that have been asked to this point.
Thank you, Peter. That was great. Dick, does that kind of help?
Yeah, for the time being, okay. Let's keep cranking.
Okay. All right. Does any other board member, any other town department head have any other questions on that process and the information that the applicant should be designing his development around? I can't see everybody. So Peter, if there's anybody that wants to participate as far as a board member, town department.
There are no raised hands.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, who is that?
It's the town administrator. Just a couple of quick comments. One, to the developer, please, when you go to ask any questions of Copeland and Page, if you have them, they must go through David for approval. I need to just control whatever legal bills there might be. So please don't go directly to Copeland and Page without going through David, so David can get the proper approval for that. And then secondarily, I just had a question about the roads. I think David, I think it was David asked that, have you decided at this time if it's going to be public roads or private roads, or what you're going to be doing with that project?
I think, Mr. Chair, through the chair,
Yep.
I think what the proposal is, a part of the filing that is before the board tonight includes one of the items we discussed with the RDIC was we had to create a lot for this project. Right now, the site is just one parcel of land. It's I think 88 or 90 acres of land. I'm not sure exactly the size of the parcel. And one of our understanding was that we would present an A&R plan that created a lot for our proposal to carve it out, keeping in mind that the town had an understanding with the solar company to use that back land. That's in fact the one of the sheets that's attached to the filing. I believe it's the fifth, it's the fourth sheet. It's called a proposed A&R plan. That shows lot one, which is what the developer is under agreement to buy from the town. So that is the lot that will be established. We will have to file a site plan, an A&R plan filing before the planning board to get that approved. We will be utilizing both Maple Ave and Rutland Heights Way, because my understanding is Rutland Heights Way is in fact a public way in the town of Rutland. So based on that, we will be designing the site utilizing the boundaries of lot one on the A&R plan.
Mr. Chair, Jeff Stillings has his hand up.
Right, is the boundaries. That's something that we had started on our last conversation. Yes. Ron, does that square away things?
Yeah, it was just we're gonna have to talk with you soon, because that solar project, there's gonna be some future discussions if that's gonna move forward or not. So I know that you were talking with the solar company about surveying that property, and after Friday, we'll be able to have a more intelligent discussion with you about that particular project. But that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Again, any other town member, and let's try to stay on point. I just want to make sure we're establishing the ground rules, the guidelines for, I don't want to get any questions about details of this project or this concept plan We're going to get into that next. But does anybody else have any comments, board members or town planners about the guidelines we are using?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Stillings has his hand up.
Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
Good evening. Thanks for recognizing me. Perhaps a procedural question for Dave George or on how does this project and the building permits, how is that going to relate to the managed growth bylaw and the 36 permit limitation, if at all? And have we looked at that?
Right. So as you recall, the growth management bylaw has certain exemptions, one of which is for senior housing. So any dwelling created as part of this project will not count towards the maximum number of permits that can be issued per year of 36 because of the exemption for senior housing.
Got it. Thanks, Dave.
Hey, Chris, Mike Sullivan here. Just one procedural point. I know Peter, when he was referring to the different parcels or parcel, what we're calling A, he was calling it parcel 1. And, no real heartburn there, but just to kind of keep the public who's not involved as we are involved in understanding what we're talking about, it would be nice if we could try to stick with the parcel A, B, and C numbers, or letters, excuse me.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So I'll clarify that. And Peter, please correct me if I'm wrong. The lot 1 that your concept plan shows, basically, it encompasses zone C and A for the most, a good part of A anyways, or a majority of A, correct?
Correct. The plan that is before you incorporates zone C on the Rutland Heights reuse plan in zone A.
Okay. And Peter Crane, if you wouldn't mind, if you could go to the reuse plan, and I believe it's page 15A, it would show these maps in these zones. Shows the, thank you, right there. Yep. Go to the one just before that, possibly. Right there. Thank you. So for Mike, thanks, Mike. Just to kind of reference everybody, get right up to speed. These are the 3 zones. And if you go to the next, page, okay? Again, zone A was industrial, okay? Zone B is that recreation municipal area, and zone C is that elderly commercial area right there, and that's the area that abuts Bill's Garage and some of the other town people that have spoken already. So that's just to get everybody in the field. But you still see there's a lot of other land all around that. On this map here, where it says possible area for future expansion of industrial park, is the area towards that wooded area that is right now a potential solar farm that the town has been looking, working on an agreement with for a while now. They're in the process of dealing with going through their all the things they need to do with National Grid. But nothing is set in stone on that yet. So thank you. All right. Anybody else have any other comments or anything else pertaining to the guidelines and how we're going to go forward approving this project? Anybody else? All right. So with that being said, I'd like to kind of switch this conversation over to just looking at this concept plan and getting feedback from some of if there's any department heads. I'd like to first start off with Peter, Peter Campobasso, do you have any comments or anything else you'd like to add to, let us know your plans on this concept plan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to clarify, the units will be duplex buildings. They will be single family units for senior housing, predominantly 1 story. Some may be a split level, 1.5, depending on the layout of the land. So that, and they will all be styled in such that they will have the appearance of single-family residential homes. And that was one of the requirements with the senior housing regulations. And the intent is to develop the site so that it will have, there isn't a set amount required of open space, but there is intended to have some open space that can be used as passive recreation for possibly a walking trail that will move throughout the site and possibly into other areas, other abutting parcels. And one of the things that we have discussed is to somehow incorporate, someone in the past had mentioned the history of the site. We understand that there are certain historical aspects of the site, and some of those things we do intend, the plan is to incorporate them into the development to have that be reflective of the town of Rutland. So Kent has been, doing everything based on a preliminary basis. We want to be cognizant of the sideline and the setback requirements. And we do, as we verify some of one of the things that's been difficult to date is because of the prior use, we have to make sure that we can, in fact, utilize the site and lay it out the way it's proposed. So some site investigation will need to be done to make sure that there's no hidden surprises in the ground that will allow us to actually use this site. Some of the buildings may be relocated, repositioned. This might not be the exact layout once we get into some of the more refined design. But for the most part, the idea is to put forth 88 units, at a minimum 88 units for senior housing. The internal roadways will be maintained by a homeowners association. The public ways will be maintained by the town of Rutland. So that Maple Ave and Rutland Heights Way would continue to be public ways. But the roadways inside the development would be by the homeowners association. And we will try to incorporate, some type of a sidewalk, walking trail, bike path type of open space recreation passive use. That's pretty much the concept. They are working with an architect to design the buildings so that they are consistent with the other homes in the town and will allow for the requirements for senior housing as well, so that the people that will occupy it will have the ability to utilize it and function in it. If there's any other questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Does any of the board members, review board members, or any of the town officials have any questions at this time?
Was it ever mentioned that, was it a slab or a foundation?
They'll all be foundations.
Foundations, okay.
Anything else?
Jim, I have a question.
Go ahead, Jim.
On the Rutland Heights reuse plan on page 17 and 18, it has a number of requirements, not requirements. The committee feels the primary objective of the site developer should be to meet the needs of the community through affordable houses and services such as, and has a list of 6 or 8 services. What's your plans on those?
So, Peter, you have that in front of you, that page 17?
I can just read them off briefly. It's medical care, adult child care, art, hobby center, fitness center, adult day, health services, transportation, community gardens, community convenience store. And I realize that's a big list, but the reuse plan is not just for housing. And this proposal is just for housing.
Correct.
Well, okay, so that, Jim, you bring up a good point. So the reuse plan lists 3 types of elderly housing: living, assisted living, and mixed living, which includes the affordable housing. So I'm not, and this is something that we should discuss as a board. This is one thing I want to bring up, and you bring up a great point. To what extent of additional services does that apply to all three of these or just one of them? Because obviously an assisted living would have a lot of these medical and some fitness and adult daycare health services, whereas a regular over 55 does not need those services. A standard, live alone, independent living would not require some of that. So, just Peter, do you have, is your application going to provide any of those services?
Well, if I may respond, Mr. Chairman. First, we have to keep in mind that the reuse plan, if you read the entire Rutland Heights reuse plan, I think it is talking about a single developer developing the entire site. That is not what our proposed development will do. We are not going to develop the entire site. We're just going to develop a portion of it so that there is potential for those other uses identified to be located somewhere else on the site. But in addition to that, when Harbor Classic Homes originally responded to the RFP, the initial submission included utilizing some of the land on Zone B for a community center for the town, which may have incorporated some of those items that are listed on page 17. Based on our discussions and negotiations with the RDIC, it was determined to not go in that direction and to focus on the over 55 housing, which is what we did. And to an earlier point,
So you think, go ahead.
one of the things that is difficult is.
Excuse me, Peter, one
Yep.
second, please. Hey, everybody that's on the Zoom here, could you please mute yourself if you're not speaking? And right now it's just Peter. Everybody, thank you. Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, so my point is, so we moved away from, that concept of having a mixed use strictly to the senior housing. And the other part of it is, one of the points that was mentioned earlier, the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission is sort of centrally located in Worcester, and they do reviews and they keep up on what's moving, what's not moving. And the difficulty with the site is it's very unlikely that you're going to get any type of industrial user to come out and develop this site. And they're aware of that. And some of those requirements have been revised over the years, but there still appears to be a great need for senior housing, specifically in the town of Rutland, but not exclusively to the town of Rutland. So that's one of the reasons why, as the application responding to the RFP developed, we kind of moved away from some of these other issues and we focused strictly on the senior housing. I hope that answers the question.
Jim, how do you feel? You good with that?
Mr. Chairman.
Jim, you're not off mute, Jim. We can't hear you.
I think as housing increases in Rutland, these other issues, the need for these other services comes up. And that's why they were mentioned in the reuse plan.
Yeah, Jim, that's a great point. And certainly adding more senior housing is going to add a greater demand for a lot of these needs. To your point, I'm not these are not requirements in this reuse plan. These are recommendations and you know, what the committee felt that there was, because this page 17 represents a House fact-finding committee that tried to give some guidance on how they would do the elderly housing, or just housing in general, because it actually dictates certain houses shouldn't be up there as well, like a senior mobile park, nursing homes, rest homes, things like that, that they just should not have there. So I think those are great points, Jim. We'll you know, please keep them and advocate for them as you need be. And you know, the senior center was a part of this proposal, and it's kind of been tossed around. So that's something that's going to have to be discussed as we go through this review process.
Chris, Mike Sullivan here. I guess I'd like to ask Peter, you know, many senior housing projects in the area, particularly of this size, have, I don't know what to call it, a community center or, you know, some kind of common area. Has that been considered?
A pool area or something like that, Mike, right? Like an exercise area.
Yeah, you know, I mean, a place where they can have group meetings and play cards or, you know, whatever. It might address some of the things that Jim brought up if there was a place for that. I just didn't know whether that had been considered or not.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, through the chair, it has not been considered as of yet, but I'm sure that is something that we can look into and see if it can viably fit into the project.
Okay.
But with that being said, I would just like to state that would not be a public facility.
Correct. That's what I was
saying. Only for these 88 units. So just so everybody's understanding, if the applicant is willing to go, you know, and finds it possible to include a common area like this on this facility, that's not a public thing. Things like that are usually under the, you know, the just the confines of this facility. Correct, Peter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that would be correct.
Chris, that'd be HOA.
I'm sorry, Dick, what was that?
It would fall under the HOA, Homeowners Association.
Correct. Yes, there would be a fee for maintaining that property that every owner of a unit in those 88 units would have to pay, just like plowing their private streets and maintaining their lawns and painting and fixing, upgrading windows, whatever down the future, correct?
Yes.
So that's something we can certainly discuss. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think there's certainly enough sentiment here in the town that, you know, looking at the reuse plan, that if there was something like that was able to be provided, I think it's a great idea. And we'd love for you guys to take a look at that, Peter and Kent, to see if something like that is a possibility, a small community center within this for these 88 units. If you could, please, you know, please take a look at running that through and seeing how that would affect your project.
Okay.
Process.
Mr. Chair, the town administrator has raised his hand a couple times.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering if it might make sense for Peter to give a high-level timeline of this project, both for the committee's purposes and for the general public. They have an idea of what the timeline for this development might be.
You mean in construction, or just from where we are right now to a completion, or?
Yeah, where we are right now through completion, just so people have an understand the timing of all of this.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll try to put some type of a general outline together for a timeline, and I can forward that, and we can work on it with Mr. Sullivan and Mr. San Angelo.
Okay, I do want to caution everyone. Setting these timelines can often just set everybody up to create frustration, and I think it's a great idea to have some, you know, goals and some timelines in any project, but please, you know, let's keep some contingency time in this, because this is a brand new experience here, going through this HPDD review process. It's uncharted territory for the town. It's certainly uncharted territory for the applicant dealing with something like this, and just be careful. That's all. I just want to warn everybody. Don't hold nothing to the bank too hard.
Mr. Chairman, just
Yes,
a point of reference. As recently as this afternoon, Laurel and I had a discussion about this very thing. You know, in my private life, I'm a project manager, and I'm very used to, you know, regular updates every week or 2 weeks or whatever is necessary. So Laurel and I talked a little bit about that, and Peter, I'm sure it was later this afternoon. I'm sure she has not conveyed that to you, but you know, I definitely think that's worthy.
And I do, and I think now that we're kind of giving the applicant, Harbor Classic Homes, some guidelines on how to design it, I think now they could actually try to start creating some schedules and timelines. But previously, without even knowing, how to dictate this project, I think it's kind of hard to ask them when you're going to be done when you don't even know, what you're doing. So, yeah, I think that's good that we're trying. That's why I'm trying to establish these guidelines to them to get them set on course and get them moving forward. Okay, regarding going back to the reviewing this concept plan that they have submitted so far, any other comments or questions or I know there was one comment, Peter, I'd like to make you aware of that we got a response, and Peter Crane, you can probably confirm this. Was there something about the 100 buffer mark should be marked on the plan? Is that correct?
Yeah, that was one of the points I was going to bring up. Is things to help the regulatory process. Thank you for putting in the 2 and 400. I appreciate that. But we also need 100-foot marks from every wetland so that we can properly determine what is jurisdictional to Conservation Commission.
Mr. Chairman, Kent Oldfield here, if I could answer that.
Yes, please go ahead, Kent.
Yeah, we would definitely do that. Some of the wetlands that we had on that plan, snow kind of got to us, so we just we had to finalize that couple of those wetlands.
No, absolutely. We're not asking for a final delineation right now or anything. I'm just saying when it comes time.
Absolutely.
When you submit the next round of plans, it would be really helpful to us to see that. Our expectation is that the wetland, that the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction will end at about the road. But that is our best guess today. Your measurements will tell us for certain.
Mr. Chairman, just point of information. I don't know whether Kent and Peter know, and I think I'm right, Peter Crane. You are the chairman of the COMCOM, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, just so they understand where the question's coming from.
Correct. Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yeah, Peter runs the Conservation Commission, heads that up, and also he's kind of heads up all these Zoom meetings for all the departments in town. He's a tech guru here in town.
That's good to know. Thank you.
And I don't believe, Tamika, we had any other input from any other boards. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. There was no comment from the select board nor from the planning board.
Okay. And in the Board of Health, there was nothing there as well, I don't believe. And then I don't believe we heard anything from the fire department or the police department or DPW, correct?
Dave George can confirm, but I don't believe we heard from anybody. Oh, Dave has his hand up, so he might have updated info.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that the planning board did not have any comments on this matter. We did circulate this application per the requirements of Article 5 to pretty much everybody. As far as I know, we didn't get any comments back from any group. I understand that the select board did not have any particular comments either. There was one comment from an abutter, which we circulated to the board earlier this afternoon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'll bring that up. Now, yes, there was a great segue. There was a comment from an abutter. I believe the gentleman's name is Matthew Fogg. He is at 1 Christmas Tree Lane, and he directly abuts parcel, I believe it was C. Yeah, parcel C, right? Oh, yeah, thank you, Peter. Excellent. You can see it right up in that Matthew Fogg, 1 Christmas Tree Lane, right behind units 9 and 10, 11, 12 there. And he had a question about possibly trying to mitigate the buildings right on his back property yard, and was wondering if he could get a 10-foot high fence installed at that location. So would like to make you aware of that, Peter and Kent. And if that's something, we can discuss mitigating these details as we go through this process, but just to make you aware that that one abutter did request that, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, and if I could, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, I think if I read his comment correctly, he thought that the buildings were going to be two-story buildings. And the buildings that are proposed are not two-story buildings, but we will definitely take his comment into consideration.
Terrific. And I think it really I just kind of wanted to bring that point up because I think it really segues, you know, just how, you know, put some thought, guys, Kent and Peter Campavasso, on how you're going to mitigate the lot line along. That's probably one of the main areas that we're concerned about. I mean, Mr. Mosio brought up a great thing about his trucks in the morning, and they're picking up smash cars all around town through any time of day and night. Certainly the area of, you see Matt Fogg on the plan and the Timothy Stalnick property. They're very close, small lots. These are not big, you know, lots. And where you have such a condensed amount of units on his small lot, you know, he's going to be looking at the backside of 3 duplexes. I think he brings up a viable point. You know, just think of something, whether it's, you know, some vegetation or fencing that would mitigate some of these abutters' concerns in general. But I think Mr. Fogg brings up a general point for the whole property.
Mr. Chair, Tim Narwhal has his hand up.
Thank you, Peter. Tim, go ahead, buddy.
Hey, through the chair, I just was trying to get a timeline, and I don't want to get him tied down. That you guys had mentioned, Peter, that you guys were going to come to the planning board with an A&R. Any idea of month, 2 months? Only reason I'm bringing this up is we're getting close to town meeting, and we've got our schedules are pretty full. I mean, an A&R is an A&R. I get it, but there could be a lot of discussion, and because it gets put on our agenda, I just want to get a general idea what you guys were thinking.
Through the chair,
please.
As far as the A&R is concerned, my understanding is we needed to prepare a draft A&R, and then I believe, based on this draft, the town, whether it's the RDIC or different people in the town, have to have a meeting with the solar people first before anything can be finalized. So I'm not really able to give you an answer because we need to get some feedback from the solar people first, and that's kind of out of my hands because I think the town needs to meet with them and come to some consensus and then get back to us. So I'm not really sure that I can give you an answer tonight. I'm not trying to be evasive, but we're kind of waiting on some comment now from the solar company.
Mr. Chairman.
1 second, Mike. Thanks, Peter. And I'd just like to, Tim, just to kind of clarify, if you know, if nothing else, that just drags out the timeline here before your meeting. So I don't, you know, by the time the town gets those things figured out, we get through a concept plan review, and then we get into a site plan review. I think you kind of have a pretty good idea of what the kind of time frame that's going to be.
It'll be past the town meeting, Chris.
I wouldn't be surprised. Let's put it that way. And
good enough. Thanks.
And everybody, we're going to continue to work as hard and as fast as we can here to move along. But that's quite a bit of things to work out. And so, anyways, yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Well, I just want to mention to Peter Campobasso, I know the TA referenced this earlier. The solar project has got lots of things going on right now, and it appears as though by the end of the day, Friday, we're going to know for sure what's going on there. But don't get too hung up on the solar issue. I think we're going to resolve that fairly quickly.
Okay, if I may then, Mr. Chairman, just to give Mr. Narwhal a sense, my preference would be to have an approved A&R plan for purposes of design. So from a tactical standpoint, it might make sense to get the A&R plan done sooner rather than later, because we want to be basing our design on the actual lot. And if it's going to be design going forward, I would prefer to have the A&R plan done. So I'll wait to hear from Mr. Sullivan and the town administrator, and if there is any feedback from the solar company, and we'll see how it goes.
If I could just cut in on this real quick, I think from the staff perspective, we can handle an A&R pretty much at any time. I look at this, and this is a pretty standard form, so I'm not sure that there's a lot that's nuanced about this type of A&R, so I think we can handle this whenever it's ready.
So, Mr. Chairman, another question, please. I'm not sure who could answer this, Kent or Peter. Can you just describe for me in 30 seconds or less, what is the A&R? Why is an A&R required? Is that just to chop off parcel A off of Rutland Heights Way?
Yes, for our purposes, our application bid to the RFP was for the portion of the land that consisted of parcel C and parcel A. In order for us to own this site, it has to be carved off from the main site. And since this is not a subdivision, it'll be approved as a site plan. We have to create the lot, and using the frontage on Maple Ave will allow us to get this approval not required, because we're not creating a subdivision road per se to access the carved off lot C and lot A.
Well, again, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to waylay, but I guess I'm puzzled how. I understand where the frontage can, well, I think the frontage on parcel C can come off of Rutland Heights Way. It doesn't need Maple Ave. And I guess I don't understand how you can get an A&R off of Maple Ave on parcel A when Rutland Heights Way goes through it.
Dissects it, basically.
I'm sorry?
It dissects it.
Yeah, it goes right through it. So I would think the frontage would come off of Rutland Heights Way for parcel A, for both, for parcel C and A.
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Ken.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, there's a small, Rutland Heights Way doesn't go all the way to the town of Rutland to the north. There's actually a 3-foot section right there. So all this, you see that this is lot 1 on parcel A, on the parcel C and parcel A, because that is all one lot. And if you go back to the, this concept plan, if you go to the, I think it's sheet 4, it actually shows that.
That should be what you're seeing now is sheet 4.
Can you go to the next page, please?
Sure.
No, go to sheet 3. Go to sheet 3.
Yeah.
There you go. Oh.
Oh, sorry.
Just right there. You see that detail that's up the top of the sheet? There's actually Rutland Heights Way stops about 3 feet prior to the lot line. So that's why, just to make it perfectly clear, we have a lot 1 on the left-hand side, but it continues through that 3-foot section, and then lot 1 on the other side.
And that's the way it is right now, Kent, you're saying?
That's exactly the way it is now, yeah. Rutland Heights Way never went through probably for the reasons that they didn't want to at the time. I don't know why, but a lot of times they do that so the town of Rutland doesn't continue that road to that's the school.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because they probably by completing that road to the town line,
yep,
would ultimately create another lot, which
right
is at zone C, and then they would have had to have gone through the process of getting that a town vote, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
It has this. So we have all our frontage on Rutland Heights Way, whether it's and that is all lot 1, and it basically encircles and encompasses Rutland Heights Way with lot 1.
But the road does go over that 3-foot or whatever footage parcel, that gap.
The road, the access does.
I'm
so
muted.
there is.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
when it continues, it is a driveway up to Main Street.
That is
Through the
correct.
school, all the way
Yes,
through
past
the
the
school.
school. That is a driveway, not a road.
That's right.
Not a road. Okay, thank you.
And therefore,
So-
that's why your DPW director wanted a complete street to finish that off. And it's very slow coming, but it may come in the very near future.
Well, and that brings up another, another thing, that roadway, although it has public access along on that roadway, there's going to be a 3-foot section that we own.
So therefore, an easement would have to be granted.
An easement will have to be granted at some point.
I mean, I'm not speaking for the town.
No,
here.
that's
That would be
the
something
point I'm
that
making.
obviously I would recommend back through, Mike Sullivan and the RDIC board, get your easement, before you sign away here.
Oh, this is exactly right. This is why, Peter,
Ken, let's
Peter
just
and
talk
I,
about that easement. Would you guys, Peter, Kent, would you guys have a problem with that easement for any reason?
No, I mean, I think by necessity, it's pretty obvious that something along those lines has to take place, yes.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, can I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead,
Sorry,
Mike.
I keep butting in here. But why would it not be possible to have your frontage for your A&R for what I'm going to call parcel A? I know you're saying it's all one parcel, but for the parcel A portion come off of Rutland Heights Way, and for parcel C also to come off of Rutland Heights Way.
it does. It does.
It does.
It does.
So then why is this 3-foot part of the thing even an issue? I mean, I guess what I would say, and I'm not speaking for the RDIC, I'm speaking just for myself. I would suggest that the parcels be divvied up such that 3-foot section is not included in the sale to you. Let parcel A, or in your case, parcel 1, stand on its own off of Rutland Heights Way, and let parcel C stand on its own with its frontage on Rutland Heights Way. I don't know if that causes you heartburn in some way, but.
Well, through the chair, to Mr. Sullivan, you raise a very good point. That's why in my discussions with Harbor Classic Homes in Kent, we wanted to present this to the board, to the HPDD board, as a proposed A&R plan so that we could get feedback from the town before we present anything in a final nature. So obviously, these are issues that have come up. We definitely need to get some different, it would be helpful to get some comments from the building inspector because utilizing frontage and area and all that stuff is going to be important when we start to do our density calculations.
Okay, Chris, I don't want to get hung up on this. It's just, I kind of have my ex-planning board hat on and my RDIC hat at the same time. And I would envision the DPW superintendent probably saying, I'd much rather there not be an easement there. Is there something you could do about that? And if there's a way to do it as I suggested, I think that might be a more sellable project. Okay, I'll shut up.
No, that's all right. I mean, I want to bring up a point here to Peter Campambasso's last point. Creating 2 separate lots isolates that zone A. And that's zone A is going to have somewhere upwards of around 60 some odd units, at least if I remember the plan correctly. And when we're talking density, that's going to be an issue. Just at first blush here, but it looks like, with that amount of frontage and getting that, whereas if by keeping this as one lot, there's a lot of great, and now the frontage, all of that frontage is for all 88 units. And that's going to make things a lot simpler for this project to move forward. Once you divide this up, the applicant is going to have to come back for us for 2 separate proposals because now you have 2 separate lots. Right. And we're going to have we're going to have lot 1 down by 56 is one address, and lot zone A, I guess zone C would be one lot, and zone A would be another lot. And now I think at that point it becomes two separate projects because they're two separate parcels. And then that means two separate hearings for all of these things. And I'm not sure I'm going to leave this at this. I'll write a memo back to the RDIC board. And I think this is something that Peter and you, Mike, and Peter Campobasso need to discuss. But I think changing this right now and not, taking that 3 feet away from him is going to seriously affect this project going forward as it stands right now. And I'll just, please, if anybody else has any comments on this, I'd love to hear it from the town review boards and any other town members.
So, Chris, so what you're saying then the water or sewer line?
Dick, hold on one second. Doug Bridge, go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had my hand up. And I was going to ask the same thing. What about the sewer line that goes in that 3-foot section?
What do you mean?
Well, if we sell them that whole lot, are we selling them the 3-foot section of sewer?
Yeah. So listen, if you're gonna in an easement situation, the easement would document all the access that we would need to maintain the sewer, to be able to dig up to the sewer, water, if there was natural gas, electric, the actual pavement and repairing the pavement, electrical, national grid needing any use for that land. All of that would be encompassed into an easement that I would recommend the town legally create with the applicant so that all of that access needed for utilities, for road maintenance, would be allowed by the applicant through an easement, and which is somewhat very common.
So you would sell them the whole piece of land with an already encompassed easement.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. It would be one of the articles of the sale of property.
Yeah, and I think from a common sense standpoint, we have to go with what exists on the ground. And, when Kent and I were looking at this originally, and we saw that 3-foot strip, we don't have as much knowledge as the board members do. And we weren't quite sure what it was there for or what purpose it served. But clearly, if there's utilities that are in that roadway that need to be maintained with the town, we clearly have to work out the appropriate easements and maintenance requirements.
And that's a good point, Peter. Just for everybody who's listening, this is not something that the applicant proposed. This is the baseline that the existing town line conditions that they're working off of. The only line that they have basically delineated is the line that comes down the plan and along to create lot 1. But the roadway and obviously the abutting line and Route 56, all that's there for them to work around. So we had asked the applicant to, based on the density requirements in the elderly housing, 55 housing bylaw, to lay out the lot lines for the amount of property you would need for the 88 units. And that's what they did. And this is a good point that it brings up. So I guess any other discussion on this 3-foot easement, so to speak, zone here from the town? Dick, you had something? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would like to have Dave George, might have to get a hold of town council. Is this going to be, I've got an old brain fart right at the moment here. Illusionary frontage because of the 3-foot. I want to know if town council thinks that it is a viable way of connecting.
If I could just jump in real quick on that. I don't believe it's illusory frontage because frontage exists off of Maple Ave and the way itself, which is frontage for the lot 1 in its entirety. What's happening with that 3-foot carve out is that lot 1 is a continuous lot because of the gap that's there. So it's not as if someone's trying to create a lot for which there's no frontage, or the frontage doesn't provide real practical and physical access to the lot itself. So I'm not sure that's the case here. I'm not even sure that, I think that's not an issue here. I'm not sure Peter Campobasso wants to weigh in on that from his experience.
Well, just as a response, we didn't propose this to cause a problem. We had to go with what exists on the ground. And I think what everybody has to keep in mind is right now, if you go to the town records and you go to the registry of deeds, the Rutland Heights parcel is one lot of land, one legal lot. That entire project is one parcel of land. It does have the Rutland Heights Way on it right now, but it is still one parcel of land. Because of our bid and because of the areas on that parcel that we propose to purchase and develop, we have to, by necessity, define our lot lines because the town will carve off that lot 1 as it's identified. But for our purposes of discussion, parcel C and parcel A of the Rutland Heights reuse plan, the town will convey that to Harbor Classic Homes and will retain ownership of the remaining land for whatever other use you want to approve on the site. Now, as I said, we when we compared the deed description, the lot lines, and the road layout plan, we became aware of the fact that bump out existed. So we felt it would just be easier to carve this one lot out because that's what Harbor Classics Home is proposing to buy. So, but it's clearly something we can keep looking at and we can discuss with the town.
From Maple Ave up to that 3-foot gap, how many feet? It's over 1,000 feet.
It's 2.
No, Dick, that's what I was looking at. I don't think it is. I think it's less than 1,000. I was doing the math quick.
I think it's about 600 to the wetlands, and then I think it's less than 1,000 too.
So that, Dick, what I was going to say from the planning board's perspective is, I don't think that it's illusionary because it's less than 1,000 feet. And we've done in town multiple times on the planning board for the A&Rs, that 3-foot section, Peter, just put in an easement note in the A&R and it's done.
Correct. I don't mean to interrupt, but I think that's what Kent and I had pretty much discussed and concluded. So that's just the reality of what exists on the ground.
Chris, are you still there?
Yep.
I apologize. I feel like I've waylaid your meeting. I just wanted to raise that point. I don't think it's a significant issue. One way or the other, it'll get resolved.
No, it's not a matter of waylaying the meeting because this is discussing and defining the lot lines. I think is going to be very imperative.
Yep, understood.
There's one question I wanted to bring up to this process is creating this town line. Let's just say, this is what we do, okay? With that little 3-foot bump out, we do an easement, we agree on that. Whatever size parcel we carve out for these folks, does that have to get voted at the town meeting to be approved?
No.
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 That does not.
Nope.
No.
Property is not owned by the town.
IDIC.
It is the property is owned by RDIC, not by the town.
Correct. It's not town of Rutland, it's the RDIC commission.
Okay, so the RDIC can just chop this up, do a vote, and that's what they do, and then it's over.
Yep.
Is that the process of creating a lot up there then? Is the short and sweet of it?
Yeah, there's a P&S, there's a process, but I mean, Mike probably knows it better than I do, but I'm sure it is that simple.
The A&R, Chris, I think has to come through the planning board because we're the only signatory powers for the registry of deeds in Rutland, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair, through the chair, yes, that's correct. That's why we, in our discussions with the RDIC and Mr. Sullivan, they asked us to include this in our proposal, which we are doing. And yes, as I stated earlier, the A&R plan does need to be presented to the planning board to be approved.
Right, and I do agree with that. I just wanted to make sure creating the lot was something that we could do with, or what was the process of creating the lot on this parcel? Okay. All right, so that's just done by the RDIC. That's not a town warrant article or anything like that. Okay. All right, so review board members. Do you guys have any other comments or any other questions or anything you want to add to this? Doug?
Yeah, just a quick one. On the sewer on the lower lot number 1, I just want to make sure that sewer actually enters onto Rutland Heights Way and not onto Maple Ave.
Say that again.
The sewer for the 10 houses that are going to be on the lower lot, number 1, the sewer needs to enter onto Rutland Heights Way and not onto Maple Ave.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Oh, what's the purpose for that? Just curious.
Well, because of the fact you all know that I live right across the street from the entrance of the new section there, and the problem is you don't have sewer that has any size in the on Maple Ave, because
Right.
all of Highland Park went down south towards Karen Way and the whatnot. So there's only a few houses that are on that sewer line that meets into the main line, which is across the street down by where Heineloma lives. And you got the new line that comes in from.
It's just a capacity issue. It can't handle the capacity is what you said.
There's no capacity. Plus the fact that you don't want to have that sewer coming in at a right angle into Maple Ave, because when it hits Maple Ave, it's going to go north and south. You want it to come in so that it naturally meets into that the other section about where Rutland Heights Way is printed. There's a T that goes there all the way across the field into the
it
main.
cuts across that zone C, zone B, correct?
That's right. You come down in there and it enters over down on the bottom onto the main trunk line.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, and Ken, you sound fine with that anyways, right?
That's good information. Yeah, our roadway grades, preliminary grades, actually have the sewer going down to that, I'd say the end in the Rutland Heights Way.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question or two about sewer, if I may.
Please do. Go ahead.
So are you using existing sewer lines or are you putting in new ones?
We
and
would
by
be,
that I mean, are you replacing or are you rehabilitating or are you making a complete new system for your development?
no, we would have new sewer lines within the confines of the new roadways connecting to the sewer that's in Rutland Heights Way.
Right. The reason I'm asking if they're existing has to do with, just a second, let me pull up a picture while I'm looking at it. And so let me explain. I am on a conservation commission, but this is not related to conservation jurisdiction. This has to do with DCR jurisdiction, which is drinking water and the Watershed Protection Act.
That's right.
So this is a different view of the property. This is all of Rutland Heights. And this slashed area, I'm going to confuse everybody because I'm going to use the term you've heard too many times today, Zone A, which is surface water protection zones. This is DCR regulated space, and they have rules about sewer, about not putting new sewer lines into anything that's Zone A. Again, I cannot help a lot with it. This is not my jurisdictional space, but they hinted to me that there may be issues laying new sewer pipe anywhere in a Zone A.
Right, but that's why if you look at our roadway comes in, you can see where we were just talking about the 3-foot zone on that at the end, part of Rutland Heights Way right there. Part of Rutland Heights Way is outside of that zone. So that's where our road is connected. And then again, that's the sewer line for there. And then we'll be connecting on the other side on the zone C, I guess it is, on the, and they show it as Lantern Lane, but it's not Lantern
So
No, you're right. That's Rutland Heights Way. Lantern is
Right.
on the other side of the road, for goodness sake.
Yeah. And I think, and just, and in addition to this, that portion of, and we'll be getting a judgment from DEP or DCR, I should say, on that section of the wetland, because I believe with that, after you go through a culvert, it's not part of the zone or what we call the WISPA, Water Supply Protection District.
Mm-hmm.
That may be reduced on that side, but in any event, we'll be outside that water supply protection.
So you're putting in, excuse me, through Chris, through you. I noticed some of the units are going to be over the hill. So how are you going to get the sewer from there up to the top?
We'd have ejector pumps if we had to on the bottom on some of these units. They have what's called E1 pumps.
Yes, I know about them.
So those we would use those.
And also, Peter Crane, just to go back to that plan you just had there, the existing sewer line goes through that water protection zone.
And it may have been placed before the Watershed Protection Act was, and the drinking water.
That was put in when they put the new road in.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know when it was put in. I don't know what has been approved, what hasn't been approved. All I know is what DCR told me today.
Yeah.
And boy, that plan there really makes that zone B not too marketable. If you put any sewer lines along that whole Route 56, I mean, you're just looking at a building that's going to be set back a ways, and
you look at all the houses.
I mean, wow, that's a game changer there for the viability of that zone B. Interesting. Okay. All right. Anybody else as far as
good
from the board or any of the town members before I open up to the public? Okay. At this time, I'd like to open up any questions and comments to any of the public that want to be heard and would like to say, give us a comment. Peter, let me know if anybody raises their hand or.
We have a Tim Stomlick has raised his hand.
All right, Tim, go ahead.
Is there still time to file an rebuttal?
What do you mean by an rebuttal?
Well, an rebuttal to the plan for Zone C.
I'm honestly, I don't know what you mean by an rebuttal. Like, what do you mean?
Oh, okay. Well, there was an rebuttal placed for from Matthew Fogg for the 10-foot wall or some sort of fencing. There was an rebuttal placed. Is there still time to place similar rebuttals or something or some other suggestions for how they can do a buffer between the housing that they're going to put there, whether it's wall or vegetation as you suggested?
So, Tim, are you in a butter over there? Is that what it is?
Yes, I'm right next to Matthew.
Okay, Stomach, yeah. All right, so your concern is to just have some buffer there? Is that what you're saying?
I'm wondering if there is, yes, if there is some way I could still put in an rebuttal for that area. Whether I know Matt Fogg, he put in one for some sort of fencing because the houses will be right behind him. I have some thoughts on that Zone C that might be beneficial to the town of Rutland that I'd like to present.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop you there, Tim. At this time, just for a point of order, this is just a review plan of what's been proposed right here.
Yes.
This board really doesn't have the authority to start changing things. This is a review board of the concept plan that
I understand.
folks have agreed upon doing.
I understand. I was wondering who I could communicate to, if in that respect. Who would I go to?
I think you should go to Dave George, who's the town planner.
Okay, I'll do that.
You need him, Tim. He's really been the point person for all information. And
Okay.
he's a guy that the applicant's happy with and the town's happy with, and he's our man. He does a great job at, and he knows how to push the information around real well. Keep things
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll talk to him. Thank you.
But again, Tim, we'll certainly take your, a request under advisement, and the same as Mr. Fogg's, as far as, providing some type of buffer in that area for you folks, and really any of the other abutting lot lines. Yes.
Do they factor in what will happen to the value of the houses in that area when a 55+ community gets developed? Do they take that into consideration?
So I believe when the Rutland Heights reuse plan was created back in 1997, yes, there was a committee that established and recommended elderly housing in that Zone C. And, again, I'm assuming, I really have no proof of anything, but I couldn't answer your question definitively. But there were committees and there were town people that were involved, and this stuff was done publicly, and at those, and I'm not trying to, I'm just saying that's how far back the use of this property goes, Tim. And I'm not sure how long you've been at 5 Christmas Tree Lane.
Of course, I'm new to Rutland, so
yeah, okay, no, understood.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And that would be a question I guess I would have to ask maybe to Dave George, and Mike Sullivan. Was any of that considered? And has anybody done a study on, is there a negative effect of someone's property when someone puts a duplex abuts it? Does anybody have that information or know if that was considered?
Chris, I don't have a specific answer for that. I don't know whether it was, I guess you could say that it may increase the value of their property just as well as it may decrease the value of their property. So I don't have an answer that I could go back and tell you where it came from.
Yeah, no, I think as a matter of opinions, coming from a state hospital that had housing units all along there, and the state hospital up in the upper section, obviously, but the land's been vacant for so long, now people start to think it's just public, private, like this public park like land, and now all of a sudden you go into to finish this basically 30-year long process of purchasing the property and developing it. The town spent $500,000 on this land so that we could generate tax revenue, Tim, and that was the whole purpose of creating the reuse plan for this property. So they were future guidelines years down the road. That vision back in the 90s of the process of the RDIC and the town purchasing this land from the state and having the state demolish the hospital and clean it all up and do everything. And then ultimately the town purchased that land. And that was the long-term vision, if that matters. And just to kind of put you back where we got from 1995 to now, that's all.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Chris, I got a quick comment for you.
Go ahead.
To maybe alleviate some of Tim's thought processes, there's a similar type situation on Route 122A. Jimmy Susi on the old Davis property has a senior housing development next to single-family housing. He wouldn't have put that in there if it would have decreased property value since he was building both. So maybe that alleviates your thought process. So I just wanted to throw that out there for you as a reference inside of Rutland.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a great point. Yeah, thank you.
Chris, I would also comment that in all the years I've seen of development, I've never seen a study like that done, particularly around residential or senior housing, where they evaluate the values of properties around that. That I just never seen that done, and I've seen many projects. So I don't know if that's ever done or, it's just not something that's routine, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, and usually the zoning of things dictate, when zoning is created in towns, usually those things are thought through, where industrial and, but as towns, grow, industry gets closer to, you look at towns in Westboro, Northborough, Shrewsbury, there are residential areas that abut commercial, industrial properties. let alone duplex families, so duplex properties. So, yeah, I just want to make the point and see if there was any information out there. Thank you. Any other questions from the public?
There are no raised hands. Oh, there's one.
All right.
Peter Passier, who's the Historical Commission chair, if I remember correctly.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, that's correct. I also happen to live on Highland Park Road, and I was just wondering, I noticed there was some kind of access road or driveway or road there going between the current Rutland Heights Way and Bill's Service Station. And I'm just wondering, is that going to connect directly to Maple Ave? And if so, how are we going to be mitigating any, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, are we considering the impact of Highland Park Road and the surrounding traffic?
So you're referring to the road that units 1 through 22 are on. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
Okay, and now what is your specific question?
Is that going to connect directly to Maple Ave? And
Yes,
if so, have we considered the impact that would have on the intersection with Highland Park Road?
Yes, to answer your question, and Peter Campoboso, correct me if I'm wrong, but yes, that does connect to Maple Avenue, and it does the L out to the Rutland Heights Way. And at this time, there have been no traffic studies.
Thank you.
Concept plan, just to get an understanding of what the applicant is looking to provide.
Hey, Chris?
Yep.
Mike Sullivan here. I also think, and it's been 20 years since I've been on the planning board, so the guys that are there might know this better than I. If I remember right, there's also a regulation in the subdivision regulations regarding the distance between roadways, if you will. So I don't know whether that still exists, but it used to.
300 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also the width of that road entering Maple Ave. In the sight lines as you approach that, is there 30 feet there setback? Is that enough for the proper sight line for traffic? So in general, yes, we're going to be looking at the traffic flow there as this goes along. I think that brings up a good point to make the applicant aware. I know we talked about that in the last meeting, that connections onto Maple Ave would be looked at from a traffic view. And Mike and Dick, you guys bring up good points about the 300 foot from road to road. So that's all those regulations exist for the town, and the applicant will be held to adhere to those. And that's what we're trying to organize and engage tonight, that these are the regulations, the planning board regulations for streets, sidewalks, etc. All those things are the things he'll have to meet, required here. Any other public comments?
Yeah, Chris, Mark.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, one of the thing is when the school is using that to come out with the buses, they don't do it anymore because the traffic was so bad coming out of there at the center of town, they couldn't take a turn because we don't even have a stoplight in the center. You're going to be adding a lot of cars going up that center of town when the town can't even figure out how to get a stoplight up there to work between the 56 and both parts of 56 and the traffic. There's going to be way more traffic going up there now. And the other thing that the other guy wants a fence there. I think the fence ought to go all the way past my property too. I mean, the one that's there that's wrecked now, they took the trees down that they never fixed. When they took them trees down, the town was going to put up a buffer. They never did that either. So I'd like to see a buffer there too myself, preferably a fence.
Okay, all right. So that's good feedback for the applicant. So you guys are hearing, it sounds like the fence is the yeah, the buffer of the day there. But yeah, and again, and just to reiterate again, not to beat a dead horse, we really are going to want the applicant to look at providing some type of buffer against any of these residential or, you know, certainly a commercial business mark like yours that, you know, it's probably it's in best interest of both parties to provide some type of, you know, mitigation for the noise and that you're going to create in your lights that you have on for security purposes, and then them to have a comfortable residential feel there, you know, in the over 55 area.
Well, I know if I was doing, we wouldn't put it next to a business, put it on the other side. I mean, they do whatever they want, but I know we make a lot of noise and they're not gonna like it.
Hey, Chris, just Mike Sullivan again, back to the gentleman that raised the question about the entrance being opposite Highland Park. I'm more concerned potentially about the pedestrian traffic on that sidewalk that will run, you know, from the hospital up in front of Mr. Mosio's property. You know, you're gonna really have a lot of activity between the gas station, Inwood Road, Highland Park, and this new road. So I would encourage them to try to have their roadway come out on Rutland Heights Way.
Maybe possibly make like a horseshoe rather than that L shape, and maybe slide some of those units over on the bottom, something like, is that what you're referring to, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, it's probably, you know, obviously that mitigates a lot of things. If, you know, Peter, you know, if you guys can, you know, rework that so it doesn't go into Maple Ave, that's going to save a lot of studies and other things that you're going to probably have to provide. So that's good feedback. Yep. Excellent. Any other public comments? Anybody else before I just close it to the public?
Mr. Chair, I have one more question that I was just thinking about. Go back to the sewer for a question for a moment. The town in its sewer capacity calculations has set aside some amount of sewage flow to come out of the heights. Does anybody know what that number is and what the likely outflow from the property, from this development would be in relation to that?
Great question.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
The selectmen many years ago reserved, and Doug and Michelle and Dickie may help me here. It seemed to me it was 30,000 gallons or 33,000. It was basically, if I remember right, the capacity of the hospital, was it not?
Yes, 36,000.
Okay.
Right, but the calculations per residence have changed since then.
What's that?
The calculation per residence has changed, as I understand it, since the select board set that reservation aside. Again, I'm just asking to make sure that there is capacity in the sewer system for this development. That's all I'm asking.
Mr. Chair, Kent Littlefield.
Do you have any idea what that is?
The flow for our would 88, because these are over 55, it's 150 gallons per day per unit. So that equates to 14,000 gallons. So we would be half of that 30,000.
Okay, no one near.
That's great. Thanks. That's all I wanted to know.
Yep.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. That's certainly, you know, again, that's something that, you know, we're going to want to look at the calculations and all that. Something that, you know, something that a possible third-party review would want to just go over those. Can't, nothing, you know, nothing personal, but just to confirm all that. And okay. Any other public comments? Anybody else, Peter?
No other hands raised.
All right, so this time I'd like to just close the public comment. And let's just kind of, it's been going on for quite a bit here, so just kind of want to wrap things up and kind of let's set a course here on where we go from here. I think in general there needs to be a discussion between the applicant and the town on that 3-foot zone and the easement and the 1 lot versus 2 lots, and just how they want to proceed. And quite honestly, we continue on the path. You know, do we continue on the path we are as it exists right now, as the 1 lot, or you know, does the town feel like, you know, we need to step in and make this 2 separate lots? I'm of the opinion that we we leave it at the one lot and just look at easements as the answer to that section, that 3-foot zone. But again, we've discussed that already. I just think that needs to be something that Dave George, maybe you can put that on your to-do list to touch base with some of these other departments and get the feedback on where we want to go with that. Is that something you can do?
Yes, so the issue is what? The issue is, what is it that you want me to circulate amongst other groups?
Well, just the fact that right now the applicant, right now the land, right now the whole parcel exists as one giant parcel, the 80, 90 acres. And with that little 3-foot zone that's there, you know, does the town feel like it needs to own that stretch, that 3.5 feet of property? Or is the town comfortable with just leaving it as it is and accepting easements?
Okay, I think, yes, I can do that. I probably will have a conversation with the DPW director in particular, because if there's any consideration for road acceptance or extension of the road or other easements that the town may have an interest in, he probably would have something to say about it. So let me, I'll see what I can find. I mean, I think you make a pretty strong case to leave it as is, as one lot, because that's the condition on the ground. I do agree that you provide, there is a solution, easements. If the applicant feels otherwise strongly, we can have that discussion. So yes.
Well, in the point of this, I think this right now is probably the biggest issue at hand right now. Before we leave this meeting, because if the town, if we don't resolve this with the town, I don't want something down the line, a month, 3, 4, 5 months from now, that someone in the town saying, no, we cannot leave this as, we need that 3.5 feet for whatever reason. And now we've got to resubmit. And I think, personally, my opinion, if the town does want that 3 feet and create 2 separate lots now up there existing right now, because if the town wants to take ownership of that 3-foot zone, that zone C becomes an isolated lot. And at that point, I believe the applicant's going to have to come back and do 2 site plan and 2 separate plan reviews. It's going to dictate in my opinion, I think we're going down a big difference here, and I'm just not sure there's a major reason for it. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, but I think, Chris, that's an RDIC issue with the department heads.
Exactly, and that's why, Dave George is the head guy here, and I want him to reach out to the RDIC guys and, the selectmen and anybody else that may have an opinion on this, for the best interest of the town. I mean, ultimately, we want to do what's right for the town here and try to also make, an acceptable project here for the applicant. But first and foremost, we want to make sure the town, as the chair of this board, I just want to make sure we get the word out to all the departments in the town and just make sure everybody's good with this if we want to continue forward going this way. I think the general opinion is to do that. I don't think anybody has a major problem with this right now, but I think there are other people here in the town to consider, that's all. And with that said, yep, go ahead.
Mike Sullivan again. Do you mind if I ask Peter a question?
Go right ahead.
Peter, from a legal standpoint, do you see any benefit to you and town council discussing this?
Mr. Chairman, I'm assuming that question's directed to me.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yes, I have a couple of thoughts, and I will follow up with Dave George tomorrow, but it might be helpful to have a preliminary discussion with the building inspector, just to get some of his thoughts on the lot layout, and then I can follow up with town council and discuss this plan, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I think at that time, guys, that's going to help identify the lot lines. Because again, if that 3 feet is not, if that lot, if the town takes that 3 feet over, now his zone A it affects the density there, and now the size lot he's going to need to get those 66 units on that parcel of land. So, everything he's, everything we're looking at right now could be blown up, and we could be starting over again. So I think I'd like to just kind of focus on those two, that main issue right there, and I think that'll give us direction as a group on which way we want to move forward, and specifically the applicant, so he can provide more detailed information back to us. Any other comments on that? So how do we plan the next meeting around this, this information? What's the timeline you think it might take to review this in-house, Dave and Mike Sullivan?
When is your next meeting, Mr. Chairman?
We do not have another meeting set for this review board right now, Peter. My schedule, the town, Dave George and Mike Sullivan are trying to get me to get a set date, but Wednesdays work the best for this group, and we can be available pretty quickly within a couple of weeks' notice on Wednesdays. Just my schedule with work right now is very demanding in the evening, and it's hard to commit to the second Wednesday of every month. But we're pretty flexible. We within a couple of weeks time frame, we can usually set up a meeting.
Okay, then I would, if I may, I'd suggest that we just continue like we have in the past. I'll follow up with Dave George, and then we can communicate with Tamika, and she can reach out to you to schedule a meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Dave, I don't know, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Dave, I don't know about you, but I certainly don't think to resolve this will take 2 weeks. But I don't know whether it makes a difference, because if you can't meet sooner than then, I guess it doesn't, but.
Well, I'd like to suggest that we meet in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Just finalize this. Does that seem to make sense from a time frame? Because I agree with you, Mike. I don't think it's going to take that long to kind of hammer this out. And if we, as a board, and I'd like to open this up to the other members of this review board, but if you're all available, come, let's see, that'd be March 10th. If we want to set that date right now, preliminary, and if
Sounds good.
Chris, do you actually need 2 weeks, or can you do it in a week? I think we can get, Dave, I'll defer to you, but I don't see any reason why this question can't be resolved before next Wednesday.
I would prefer 2 weeks.
Okay.
We have other projects going on in the office, including the master plan.
Yep.
And other projects, so it's not just the Heights.
That's fine, no explanation
What this
needed.
project is.
Review board, are you guys available on March 10th?
Sure.
Doug, you're good. Dick, are you good?
Yeah, all right, I'm gonna be good.
Yes, Jim, okay.
Michelle?
I'm all set.
All right. So let's set that up. We'll project, let's preliminary set up the next meeting for March 10th. It'll be at 6
Chris,
p.m.
if I may, we're just going to need a motion to continue the hearing to March 10th.
Thank you, Tamika.
No problem.
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing to March 10th.
Thank you, Michelle. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dick. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Should we be doing this by roll call for Tamika?
Sure, go ahead.
Banry, aye.
Williams, aye.
Briggs, aye.
Purrington, aye.
Briggs, aye.
Senecal, aye. So we'll continue this hearing to March 10th at 6 p.m. And hopefully within that time frame, we can get these lot line issues resolved and really firm up the size land. And hopefully too, the issues with the solar will come into play, a little more better focus. And, hopefully Peter Campambasso and Kent, we can give you guys some pretty firm direction on where the parcel should be and how to, further, finish, complete your design in detail. Does that sound good, everybody?
Sounds good.
It sounds good, and I wish to thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, board members, and other members of the town. I think the meeting's been very productive, so thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'd like to just thank everybody for the patience because this is a new, it's tonight, surgery, whatever you'll call it. But it's good that, we're working through it together well, and appreciate the comments from the public. They brought up some really good, important details as well. So I really just want to invite and continue everybody's, help in this matter and voice your opinions. I promise you, sometimes I hold off the public, but everybody's going to get their voice heard. And, that's the way we're going to continue to proceed. So I think it was a great meeting tonight. Is there any other comments? Anything else finally? All right. At this time, 8:06, I'll close the meeting.
Continue.
We're
Chris,
continuing.
we continued, so now we just need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All right. All in
Then yes.
Aye, aye, aye.
Henry, yes.
Briggs, aye.
Senegal, aye. You guys have it.